Okay, Rod, thanks for spending some time with me today.
Most welcome.
We're going to talk about a subject that we both find a bit interesting in around onboarding and induction. So, wanted you to share with me and the viewers your worst onboarding and induction process that you have been subjected to, or maybe you witnessed it.
Cool. So the worst one that I've been subjected to, and I've had two jobs where there was no induction and no onboarding. So we'll go with the ones where something actually happened. So I was the beneficiary of four post-it notes. Four post-it notes. The first one was stuck to my phone, and it had my phone extension on there. So that was so I knew what phone number I had. The second one was stuck to a laptop that had my email address on there, which was really entertaining because my name was spelt wrong.
Oh, great.
So I had the whole debacle of how that could possibly happen. The third one was a post-it note that had a email address on it, not an email address, a file address in the SharePoint folder, where to go and find what I presumed was stuff for me to read.
Okay.
And the fourth post-it note was a time to meet my general manager for my intro to the site, who was my boss and who I'd been interviewed by, but no day.
Oh.
So it was just a time, 8:30 a.m. And I literally sat there thinking there must be more to this than just four post-it notes.
Mm-hmm.
So the phone number was obviously clear enough. Email address with my name spelled wrong, which I needed to get fixed, which took 4 weeks to get sorted out, because all of my profiles needed to be changed and so on. And the meeting with my boss, I went to the phone directory and rang him and said, "When's our meeting on?" He said, "You should be able to see it in your calendar." I said, "I can't, my name's spelled wrong on the email, and it doesn't match up with my login details," and so my login details were correctly spelled, which didn't line up with my email, my accesses. I said, he goes, "It's tomorrow. This is one of the things I want to talk to you about." So he literally told me that one of the things that he struggled with was no induction, no onboarding, no understanding how to bring new people on. And he'd asked several times over. So that was one of my first projects, was to fix that up, which was entertaining and frustrating because everybody said, "Oh, things have been going so well so far." And I said, "No, they haven't."
I've just experienced that. And it's funny you say that because it takes me back to an onboarding induction process I had. At least people showed up for me, although my manager didn't show up, not until about 2 or 3 hours after I was there. And I got the distinct impression that she wasn't happy about me being there. But she might have been unwell. So there could be a lot more to it but I wasn't feeling very welcome, that's for sure. And then my manager, once removed above my manager, well, he decided that he needed 2 laptops. So I didn't have a laptop for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks or something like that. So I couldn't really do any work until that arrived. So that impacted other members of the team as well.
I go with the best I've seen was we had 6-month probation clauses in our contract, and everybody's induction onboarding process ran for 6 months.
Yep.
There were milestones of what needed to be done in the first 24 hours, 48, first week, first month, first 3 months. There were check-in points, but also too is you got loaded up with a whole lot of online learning, but everything else is booked in too, mandatory.
Yep.
So as part of my job, I had to get my pit license. So my day that I had to do this training and that training was already all booked in, done. So at the end of your probation period, you had all the capabilities needed to do the work, and obviously you would have demonstrated the performance and behaviours to demonstrate staying on.
Yeah.
So it was fantastic, and always been a big believer that's exactly how it should work.
Yeah. Again, the irony for me is that that workplace that I mentioned where my induction process wasn't so great, 5 years later or something when I was leaving and I took a VR, I was asked to design an induction program for leaders. And it's exactly like that. There's milestones along the way, definitely a 6 month probation period and the things that have to happen in that process, and that's something that I've carried into other organisations as well. So I suppose you've talked about what's effective. What do you think is the most important part of an onboarding induction process?
Is the connection the person is making to the organisation. And there's a number of things that they can do with that. Is when they're doing that, those connections is, am I connecting with my boss?
Yeah.
Am I connecting with my peers? Am I connecting with, if I'm a leader, the team that I'm leading? So that personal connection. Am I connecting with the people that are in the organisation?
Yeah.
Am I connecting with the values of the organisation, the behavioural expectations, the leadership expectations? Am I connecting to that? And so, really, am I, do I understand what they need, what it means to me, how do they want me to do that? And then, am I connecting to the outcomes they want me to deliver?
Yeah.
And I know people go, I don't give people KPIs when they first start. Well, no, actually tell them the expectations, set expectations.
Yeah.
Am I connected to that? Yep, I understand that one. Here's my KPIs. Here's the outcomes. Some of them will be operational and strategic. Connecting to that, because what I want to be able to do at the end of that induction onboarding period is feel like I belong.
Exactly.
And that should be the ultimate aim, is should have a little checkbox at the end. Do you feel like you belong here? Yes or no?
Yeah.
If not, let's have a chat to work out why not. If yes, crack on, let's do that, and make sure that people that follow on from you also feel like they belong. So my aim would be at the end of induction and onboarding is wanting me to feel like I belong to that organisation.
Yeah. I have a view, and sometimes you can't be so rigid on this, but I have a view that first conversation between you and your immediate manager in your new role, and those things that you've talked about, having that, having that conversation around those things, and yes, setting those expectations, and also understanding where the business has come from and where it is now, and the role that you're going to play in that, and how you contribute. I just feel that conversation with your immediate manager about those things is so important, and totally agree with you about making the connections and starting those relationships with those people that you're going to be working with. I'd like to see it happen on the first day, that conversation with the immediate manager. Can't always, but it must happen. And I like to check in, like in the first, you've had that conversation, and then check in within the first week or whatever it is in their roster to say how you're going, and you're still connecting with that.
Well, my boss, that day I got the sticky notes, he was not available that day. So I'd come in on the afternoon flight, it was fly in, fly out. But he had made that very specific, 8:30 in the morning. It was his first moment after morning briefings and so on, that was going to be his first meeting of the day, was an 8:30 meeting with me. So it's the first time he was available. I had a project manager once ask me, are you comfortable with starting knowing that I will be away for 4 weeks?
Right.
And I said, yeah, I'm comfortable doing that, but I think we should meet beforehand. And we did. We went and had lunch before he went on 4 weeks holiday, and we sat down and went through a range of things before I'd started. Just went down the pub, took our notebooks. I might have had a couple of glasses of wine while we were doing it, but had a chat before I started. But he checked in with me first. That demonstrated to me that he understood the importance of having that first meeting with him at discussion, setting expectations. So yeah,
because it's one of those things. It's sending a real message, investing that time and making it happen. I think that's something we've probably heard over the years. Well, we don't have time for that. If you don't have time for that, there are consequences to that.
Most certainly.
So I suppose that's how we'll round this off now, is how you see the benefits of implementing onboarding and induction when we do it well, and then the consequences of when we don't do it well.
So if we don't do it well and we don't create that sense of belonging, we get turnover, we get attrition. So in the first instance, that creates this environment of people not staying, and they have to re-recruit. Other people don't stay, don't feel like I belong. That then generates into our cultural reputation. People go, I don't want to work there. People don't stay there very long. Or a mate of mine went out there, didn't complete his probation, didn't like the place, didn't feel like they belonged. So we therefore then create this turnover attrition problem, but it then becomes an attraction problem. It's not that we can't keep people to stay, that we can't keep people to stay. We now can't get people to apply to come join us. And that impacts our ability to do safety, because we start people start being overworked. It also then impacts our ability to deliver performance outcomes because people are now under the pump and in some instances, doing the job of two people, trying but not effectively, trying to do the job of three people. So we've got that situation now where people are now not delivering the outcomes that they need. And it comes down to that don't feel like they belong, people don't stay, can't get people to come. But also too is those people that are here that don't feel connected to the business, don't give you that discretionary effort. They tick boxes, they do the bare minimum, they get through the day without making a mess of it, and they leave it at that.
Yeah.
You don't get that extra bit, you don't get that cream, you don't get that, you know what, there's so much more I could do to make this a really good job, but you're not getting that. You're not getting that. And that's, exactly. I'm not incentivized to be really connected to the business. And I think that's one thing that we do misunderstand very much is that people will do better when they feel like they belong to an organisation.
That's right.
We need to create that environment for them.
That's right. And it starts, I mean, we could say it even starts in the recruitment and selection process, but it definitely starts when we're bringing them into the business before they start with us, and then when they are with us, the things that we do that make them feel they belong and they can contribute, because we all naturally want to do that and we want to achieve. So why wouldn't we spend the time to set them up for success and set our teams and the business up?
Well, here's a big thing: spell the new starter's name right.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be good.
Simple
One
things.
of my pet hates.
Little things. But they're the little things that then people actually feel like they belong.
Exactly right. They know who you are.
Yeah, exactly. And you know you want to because someone's gone to the effort to make sure it's all good.
Yes. You know, one of those things is that when they set up your workspace for you, there's nothing worse than coming in, there's nothing there.
Yeah. I've been to a place where the screens were there and I was asked, as part of my pre-employment, how do I like my desk set up? And I thought, I'll just make sure there's a couple of things. No, I said I like two screens up because I put my laptop to one side. It was all set up me, literally, laptop to one side, two screens, keyboard. There was this, there was that, all these other things. There was a nice welcome note, a couple other things. And I was sitting there going, that's way cool. Like, I feel, this feels really good. I'm glad I'm here. I feel like I belong. So, yeah.
A great start.
Yeah.